we're going to have to go through this another 4 times or so. So I'm going to go ahead and put this out there right now. If you guys aren't going to add Sora as a fighter, please, God, do not add him at all. My heart will shatter into a billion pieces if I see my boy massacred as a Mii fighter. Please, God, if you aren't going to add him, don't add him at all. Please, I beg of you.
Everybody like, hey, are you ready to go? Ready to go. Everybody like, hey.
Alright, what's going on, y'all? Soul here, and welcome back to my story mode. And yes, you've caught me yet again at another 3 a.m. video. That's not gonna come out for you guys at 3 a.m. This one's coming out for you guys at, like, a regular time. But I'm recording this at 3 a.m. because I got a lot on my mind. I've been thinking about it all day, I've been hearing about it all day, and a lot of people have been talking about it. Does Sephiroth's entrance into Smash destroy Sora's chances? Now, let's make one thing really clear here. Based on the beginning of this video, I'm sure I am a humongous fan of Sora. I am a humongous fan of Kingdom Hearts. It's one of my favorite series of all time. Alright? I've been asking for Sora for a very long time, and my hopes for him never waver. I will always hope and pray that there's a chance that my boy will make it. However, as of this recent entrance, I will say that if we don't get Sora in Smash, I will live. Okay, I'm gonna be just fine. I have Joker, Cloud, and Sephiroth as representatives of the RPG genre, which is my favorite genre of all time, and some of my favorite games of all time. Final Fantasy VII Remake, Persona 5, and Persona 5 The Royal. And I'm perfectly satisfied. I'm at the point where I would rather Nintendo to go, I'd rather they go out of their way to satisfy other people. I'm so sorry, but I'm probably not gonna cut that out. I hit you guys, and I apologize for that. But I would rather they, appeal to other people that want their characters represented. FPS players. I'm sure that a lot of people would want Master Chief. A lot of people would want Tracer. I want Tracer or Master Chief. I'd be okay with either of them to represent the first person genre. All right, first person shooter specifically, just to make that clear. So either way, I'd live without it, but it still does make me wonder, what are Sora's chances now that we've gotten Sephiroth? And there's reasons for that question. Because as a lot of us know, Tetsuya Nomura is the big boy in charge of both Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts, both respective series. He's the big brain in charge. Okay, so Square Enix, as the half the co-owners of Kingdom Hearts, they completely own Final Fantasy VII, which means that Nintendo has talked to them multiple times to get a hold of their characters. Okay, so it just makes you wonder, what does this mean for Sora? What are his chances? What's gonna happen to him? And all we can do is sit here and wonder. So I've compiled a little list here in the middle of the night to kind of get my ideas out there as to why his chances may be better than before, or why his chances might possibly be worse than before. And I've got a lot to go over here. And I do, again, this is another just kind of ramble one, kind of another setup, because I've got another big video coming out for you guys. I guess for you, it would be tomorrow or the next day, or whatever day comes after whenever this is uploaded. So I've got something in store for you guys. So just bear with me while we talk about this, because this is pretty important. This is something to consider, considering we do have another couple characters coming for us on the Fighters Pass. So anyway, I've rambled enough. Why don't we start hopping into why his chances may be good or why they may be worse. So let's start off on a higher note. Let's start off why his chances might actually be better. So, like I said a couple seconds ago, Square Enix is the big boys behind Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. Both series are in their hands. And because of that, we may automatically think like, oh, so they've probably come up in conversation, yada yada yada. But you got to really sit here and think about this. Just because they're from the same company, you got to remember, it doesn't mean they're necessarily the same franchise at all. They're not the same franchise at all. Look at Dragon Quest. We literally have a completely different franchise from the exact same company. They're both owned by Square Enix, and yet we have two completely separate game series that are huge as representatives in Smash for the RPG genre. So, it's kind of, I think it's more crazy to believe that his chances are completely kaput just because he's owned by Square Enix. That doesn't mean they can't go to Square Enix one more time, because Square Enix is a big legendary company. They've been around for a very long time, producing very legendary games for a long time, So I think it would be, more ridiculous to really just lump Kingdom Hearts in with Final Fantasy and call it a day just because they just so happen to be under the same name of Square Enix. That's ridiculous. Dragon Quest is right there, and they're doing just fine. They got a lot from their series. Again, these are completely different developers per se. They're from different developers, but they're still under the same umbrella at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how you look at it. Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy are under the same umbrella. Big boy Square Enix, or back in the day, Square Soft. Okay, so Kingdom Hearts, just because it's it has collided with Final Fantasy, doesn't mean that it is Final Fantasy. So it's a lot more complex than that. That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't absolutely destroy form. Okay. But speaking of already being in good with Square, they're already in good with Tetsuya Nomura, the creator of both Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. So they've talked to him on multiple occasions. Obviously, they're good friends with him, or they're at least they have a good history and a good connection with him, enough so to come back and be like, hey, how you feeling about Sephiroth, big fella? How you feeling about that? And obviously, Tetsuya said, absolutely, go for it. That's my boy. Get him in there. He's the legendary villain. It would be foolish of him to turn down such a crazy opportunity. Okay. So when it comes to Kingdom Hearts, he is the big brain behind the story. He's the big brain behind, a lot of what happens in Kingdom Hearts, or, the majority of it. He is the creator of Kingdom Hearts. So all it would take is for him to make one or two phone calls. Really, it would take one or two phone calls to Disney, who has also worked with Nintendo many times before, mind you. All it would take is one call from Disney, or to Disney rather, to be like, hey, we just need your permission. Can we put Sora in there? And Disney's gonna be like, who? Oh, the anime kid. Oh God, yeah, do what you want. Smash Brothers, that super billion-dollar franchise starring the biggest video game characters of all time. That would be a weird thing to pass up. Absolutely, Nomura. Do what you must. Get the animations ready. Pay what you need. Whatever. It's all good. We would love to have that. All right. We get a fat cut though. We get a fat cut of that. Remember. And they hung up the phone, and Tetsuya's like, okay, anyway, but yeah. So either way, it really takes one or two phone calls from Tetsuya Nomura with the right people at the right, probably the right time of day, and it would be such an easy fix. All right, it's not really a problem. It takes two asks and a little bit of permission, and that's all it is, and he's good to go. All right, Tetsuya's in charge for the most part. Not the entire part, but for the most of it. And then my final point for, why his chances might be better, I'm, leaning towards the idea that this might be a bigger setup for Sora to end off the Fighter's Pass. Okay. Now I say that because he is, again, I will say this, so I've said this so many times this year, in the last couple years, because it's true. He is still one of the highest requested characters in Smash of all time. All right, clearly they pay attention. They pay attention to the characters that we ask for. Even if it feels like they're ignoring us, they still see it. Okay, Nintendo ignores us a lot when it comes to things that we want, but they still see what we want. And sometimes they even deliver. All right, people have been asking for Ridley for years. Boom, we got him. People have been asking for King K. Rool for years. Boom, we got him. It's not impossible to say that they have seen the request for Sora. And of all the characters that have been just so highly requested, Sora is one of the biggest ones that makes sense. That's not a direct IP of somebody else that they haven't already been in contact with. And, you know, obviously besides like Master Chief, I'm sure they could. They're good friends with, you know, Microsoft and all that. I think Bungie, or I'm sorry, I forget who's in charge now. Is it Bungie still? I don't know if they're working on Infinite, but either way, Sora is one of those that would be a much, you know, he would be a much easier grab. And, you know, they pay attention to that. They've probably mapped it out already. And, you know, you got to remember that he is canonically acquainted with both Cloud and Sephiroth in his own game. So maybe this is just young me dreaming. Maybe this is just big brain me dreaming a little too big. However, you know, you got to remember that, okay, let me back up a little bit. First off, we saw Sephiroth absolutely just demolish Galeem. And like I said in my previous video, dude is just emergency level threat. That is dangerous to mess with. You just watched a man kill God. You are in, and he's coming after you next. You're in danger. Okay, so just keep that in mind, right? So obviously he's a big part of Cloud's, you know, problem. He is Cloud's biggest issue. Okay, there's a lot of lore to look up on that. I don't know how much you guys know about Final Fantasy, but he is Cloud's biggest issue. Okay, they're gonna be going toe to toe forever. Okay, now you have to think about this for a second. It would only make sense for the final trailer to be, you know, the biggest villains, you know, taking on all of Smash and stuff like that, giving them hell, you know, Ganon, King, well, maybe not King K. King K is more on the good guy side. He's more of a goofball, but, and so it's same with DDD, but, you know, Ridley and Ganon and all them, you know, it would make sense for all of them to be, you know, taking Sephiroth's side. You know, they're really putting the characters of Smash in the floor. Okay, now, who better to surprise us and come and help save the day than one of the only other characters that I could think of that has canonically fought and practically beaten Sephiroth 2 times? So who else could be strong enough to beat Sephiroth? Sora. In Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2, it has been acknowledged that Sora was strong enough to beat Sephiroth. Sephiroth literally told Sora, "You are strong, but Cloud's the only one that could really finish me off. It's just not your place. My situation with him, it's just not your place." However, he did beat him. He got past him. Sora was cocky about it. I love him. Either way. So it would only make sense that if we were on we're on the final character of the final battle pass for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. You know, they've tried to make this game last as long as possible. This is the final character. Sephiroth has proven himself to be the elite threat of anything that we've ever known. And Sora comes down and says, "You're not taking any of my friends' hearts." And he starts going to town. It's the perfect setup for Sora to enter in as the final character of Smash Ultimate. It's the perfect setup. All right. And again, this is just something, this is probably just big brain me thinking a little too much. But, you know, that's something to keep in mind. So, yeah. So anyway, that just about does it for why I think that Sora's chances are actually a little bit better than before. However, we're going to have to get into the negative part of it now. There is a downside to things that could have possibly derailed Sora's chances entirely. So why don't we talk about why his chances may have worsened due to Sephiroth's entrance into Smash. For starters, like I said, Nomura, there's a good chance that they've already talked to Nomura and everything like that, and all it would take really is one phone call to Disney to say, "Hey, what do we got to do to make this happen?" However, there's also a chance that that conversation has already happened and it went more negative than anybody would have probably expected. Okay? Again, we don't know how Disney feels about Kingdom Hearts like that. We don't know how they feel about, you know, Sora being in a different franchise and stuff like that. It's questionable. They don't really acknowledge him as much as they should, which is why part of me would like to believe that they would just be like, "Oh yeah, sure, why not?" But another part of me feels like they're probably just being greedy about it. It's like they're like a big greedy child that, you know, they don't play with the toy, but when they see somebody else playing with the toy, they're like, no, that's mine. You know what I mean? So there's a good chance that the situation has already come up and they've, you know, already talked to Nomura about it, and maybe Tetsuya is just like, maybe he already has an idea like that in his head that Disney may not let it happen. Again, Disney's worked with Nintendo before, so there's really no way to confirm or deny that, but there's a chance that it's already been talked about and Nomura doesn't think it's worth it enough to make that call to Disney, you know? So, or hell, maybe he himself didn't think it was worth putting more time, money, and effort into adding Sora to Smash Brothers. Again, I kind of doubt that one, I'm not gonna lie to you, but it's very possible that the conversation that happened, if it happened, could have gone completely negatively. We really don't know. There's no way to comfortably tell how that went down. Okay. Next up here is, this one's a little bit of a stretch, but Sephiroth's inclusion might have, you know, brought on the possibility of just focusing on more villains, you know, because villains still barely get enough representation in Smash as it is. There's a lot more heroes and main characters of their respective series than there are villains, and that's weird because what's a good hero without a good villain? You know what I mean? Which is why, you know, we when we saw that whole situation, when we first saw King K's, I believe. When we first saw King K's reveal trailer, we saw that whole little montage with all of the villains making their entrance, you know, against all the, you know, their enemies, you know, Mario and Bowser, Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf, you know, Fox, Falco, and Wolf. You know what I'm saying? With every good video game protagonist, there has to be a good video antagonist. There's always an opposite. So, you know, as Cloud being one of the biggest video game RPG icons of all time, obviously Sephiroth was the perfect pick for the, you know, opposing antagonist. He is one of the biggest antagonists in gaming and one of the most dangerous. So he's well known, and he has, think about it this way. We all saw those reaction trailers. How many characters can you name that scare the piss out of you when you hear that that instrumental? When you hear that chorus kick in, whoo, you already know it's over. Not a lot of villains can do that. There's very select villains that have a power like that, and so, you know, that's why Sephiroth was a great choice. So you got to think about it. There's other villains that haven't even been represented that play such a big role to oppose the characters that are in Smash. And I'm sure a lot of us are surprised. I think there's one character that we're all thinking of specifically. There is that one character we're all thinking about specifically, and I'm going to talk about him right now. It's Eggman, okay? Now, again, there's 3 slots. There's 3 more slots after Sephiroth. It could be more than just villains. However, Sephiroth opened the floodgates a little bit, and if we're going to be doing more villains, it would make more sense to grab villains that are opposing to characters that are in the, you know, in the game already, because they play such a big role. You know, Sonic is a huge gaming icon. He's just as big as Mario, not bigger, but he's just as big as Mario, to the point where I'm surprised we haven't seen Eggman make his entrance yet. We got Sonic, and that's it. I'm deeply impressed, if anything, right? So, you know, a lot of people are still asking for Porky. You know, the Mother series is huge in Japan, and Porky is one of the most threatening villains in that series, or he is the threatening villain in that series. That's, you know, that actually makes sense, as opposed to adding, like, you know, Gygus. You know, Gygus is probably Galeem. Oh, no, not necessarily Galeem level threat, but almost Galeem level threat. But, you know, Porky was acknowledged back in Brawl in Subspace Emissary. So, you know, we've recognized him as Mother's enemy. All right, or the enemy of the Mother series, rather. You know, there's villains that they could still very well grab that could fit very nicely in this, and Sephiroth opened the floodgates for that. So because we never really thought about villains, we haven't gotten villains up to this point, which astounds the hell out of me. It's incredible that we haven't yet. So, or at least, you know, for the Fighters Pass. So that's something to think about. We are missing a lot of iconic villains, and if Sephiroth opened the floodgates for the rest of this Fighters Pass to be villains, that's perfectly fine, as long as we get Eggman. You cannot add iconic villains and not get Eggman. Anyway, moving on to my final point here. We may not be getting any more RPG characters. As big as the genre is, it is well represented. Beyond represented. Okay? We have so many characters in this game already that represents the RPG genre just fine. We literally started the Fighters Pass with an RPG main character, Joker. Then right after that, we got one of the biggest RPG franchises of all time, Dragon Quest. Okay, this is a genre that is, you know, it really did kick off gaming big time. You know, Cloud is the biggest, one of the biggest, if not the biggest RPG representative of all time. So it's safe to say that if we did not get another RPG representative, that would be fair. Overall, I think it would be very fair, because we have so many people in this, or so many characters in this game that do it for us already. That they've probably, after Sephiroth said, okay, we need to start branching out, what are other genres that haven't been represented yet? You know what I mean? There's a ton of other genres out there. You know, there's some more action platformers that haven't been properly represented. You know, there's first-person shooters that still haven't been crazy represented. You know, there's story-based, like, I don't know about that one. You know what I mean? Like, I was more leaning towards like Detroit Become Human, but that one's a stretch. It's safe to say that one's a little bit of a stretch. You know, but there's other genres that still haven't been represented in the biggest gaming collaboration of all time. And RPGs, while they've, you know, done a huge part in gaming history, there's other genres that have also done the same thing. Okay? We're missing, FPS is one of the big boys that I'm referencing, and we still have little to none of that. We have Samus. That's it. Just saying. Even though, you know, she's a PlayStation exclusive and everything like that, I don't think it's out of PlayStation's power to lend a hand with like Lara Croft or something like that. As ridiculous as it may sound, I don't think it's all that out there. So that's my final take on that. So with that, I've given you all of my thoughts on why Sora's chances may be good or why they may be worse. And overall, like I said at the beginning of this, right from the get-go, I will be more than fine if we did not get Sora for the rest of this Fighters Pass. Preferably not as a Mii fighter. I will cry. I will be very upset if we get him as a Mii fighter. I like I said, put him in. If you're not going to put him in, don't put him in at all. I don't want him as a Mii fighter. That would kill me inside. That is not a compromise. That is a killer. This is just me being dramatic. But either way, I'm more than fine with not getting Sora as a representative. I'm good with the franchises we got, and everybody that's in here has pretty much earned their spot for the most part. So we get what we get, and whatever happens next is really, it's up to Nintendo. They've already made the decision. We're just waiting to see what those decisions are. So whatever happens now, it's beyond too late. So it's just a matter of time whether we figure out if it's Sora or if it wasn't Sora. The decisions aren't still being made, although they can very well be changed. We don't know what's going on behind the curtain, but it's tough to say. We're not Nintendo. We will never know what's going on behind that curtain, because they love to hit us with those right hooks, those absolute gut punches, okay? They go full force with it. And, I'm here holding my arms out ready to get hit as hard as possible. So that's just how we do it out here. But that just about does it. So I think I've said all I needed to say regarding stuff with Sephiroth, stuff with Smash for the time being, until we get Sephiroth and his, you know, his breakdown and everything next week with Sakurai. I've said what I needed to say. So on that note, I'm gonna leave it to you guys. What do you guys think? Are Sora's chances better? Are his chances worse? Do you not give a goddamn about Sora? Are you ecstatic and you fully believe that we're going to get him right after Sephiroth? Do you think we're going to get him at the end? Did y'all like my scenario that I came up with as to how he's going to make his entrance? I know y'all like that. Anyway, that's going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and skedaddle on out of here, but I do want to hear you guys' opinions in the comment section below. I want to have a conversation about it. Tell me everything you guys think. But on that note, I'm tired. So I want to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. So do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all in the next one.